go for a big tangerine.
So, hello and welcome to this recording. Now, I'm Marilyn Devonish and I'm currently running a photo reading workshop, and I've had the pleasure of having Caroline Chapple here this weekend, both as a delegate and also as a sketchnoter. And if you don't know what that is, you're going to be finding out. Now, Caroline Chapple is a cartoonist, and what she's been doing is sketchnoting the entire, I don't know if you can see that from the camera, but I'm going to do that anyway, and we'll see if we can put some clips in, but she's been sketchnoting the entire weekend, and it's been absolutely amazing. And one of the things we're talking about on photo reading is about your creativity, it's about intuition. We're also teaching mind mapping, and that is about using pictures and symbols and diagrams. And one of the things that Caroline is really, really skilled at doing is coming up with these amazing pictures right in the moment. So as the trainer is speaking, Caroline is sketchnoting in real time and capturing that in visual form. And please go and have a look at my Facebook page /Marilyn Devonish. They're all on there and they're absolutely amazing. So what I'm going to now do is introduce you to Caroline Chapple. She's going to tell you a bit about what the process is, how it works. We're also going to take some questions from our audience who are here today, and hopefully by the end of it you've got some ideas about how you can enhance your own creativity, bring that to the fore, and even those of you who don't see yourselves as particularly artistic, hopefully you're going to get a few clues from this. So please give Caroline Chapple a very warm round of applause.
Thank you very much. Well, sketchnoting is fantastic because what sketchnoting is it's about getting information across in a way that people can understand very easily and effortlessly. And we do that through using both words and images. The idea is that you're capturing the summary, you're capturing important points of what's being said. You're not taking everything, you're just taking what you feel is what people want to see. So there are some amazing similarities with photo reading. Photo reading is very much, the starting point is about getting into state, getting into the right place, expanding your awareness, expanding your peripheral vision. And sketchnoting is the same, because what you're doing is you're being present in a place where someone is giving over information. And in the same way that with photo reading you're really expanding your visual, with sketchnoting you're really opening up your listening. So on one level you're listening to everything that's being said, but at the same time you've got a very clear channel between yourself and the speaker and anyone else that's speaking. So for me the process is really about opening up to all your senses in the same way that photo reading is. You don't really know necessarily how the information is going to come. It may come, for me it comes in, sometimes in pictures but not always. Sometimes it will come to me in words and sometimes even just a feeling. So it's about making that preparation in the same way that you would for photo reading to set your foundation of your starting point. So for me what happens is when I start, first of all, again, very much about getting into the right state. Really got this wonderful extra piece of imagery from photo reading, which is having a tangerine, imagining that you have a tangerine just above and behind your head, and that's helping you to access this state of relaxed concentration, essentially. So this is my starting point. The next part is that, for me, all about the listening. So I've got this channel always open in my ear, and really my visual is focused very much on the book and what I'm doing. So I don't tend to look up a lot when I'm actually sketchnoting, but I will keep dipping up if I need to. So at this point, when I'm listening, and my listening is really open, for me, I do get a lot of images coming through. So I will just, and you know, as always with these things, it's not like a massively bright or clear image, but as the speaker's speaking, it's really the metaphors that will come to me as pictures. And it could be really simple things like, if Marilyn, for example, is talking about a first aid or aiding or helping, if I hear the word aid or first aid, I'm going to get a picture of a plaster or something dull like that. But it's still one of the images to consider. If Marilyn might say something like elephant in the room, then I'm going to see an elephant in a room, which everyone will. Most of us will see an elephant in a room, even if it's a very quick image. So what I'm doing is when those images are coming in and I'm listening, is I'm going through a kind of criteria sort in my brain. The first thing I'm doing is saying, do I see an image? yes, I've got a picture of an elephant in a room. For me, it'll probably be a cartoon picture. The next thing I'm looking for is it a big idea or is it a small idea? So if it's a plaster, okay, it's an image, yes, but is it a big idea? It's not really a very interesting one. Elephant in the room, that could make a nice picture, and also it could be very relevant. So my next criteria sort is, how important is it? What value would it offer if I gave that image in my sketch note? So if the elephant in the room is really important to the discussion, so if that's what we're talking about this thing that none of the people involved are dealing with, maybe it's a business meeting and the elephant in the room is actually the crux of the whole conversation, then this becomes very important. If it's a throwaway comment, then it's not so important. So I'm looking for meaningful, because I've now moved from sorting out what my images are doing to thinking about my end product. How's it going to look on the page? How's it going to look on the book that's just fallen off? How's it going to look in this page? And then I'm now moving on to thinking about how it's going to be literally on the page. So my brain is constantly sort of moving around here, but I've got a very, very steady open channel here, and then I start to draw here. And it's very much like the duck paddling analogy. I've got a lot of busyness here, I've got stillness here, and when I draw, I actually draw quite slowly, because I'm vain enough to want the pictures to look nice, and good, beautiful pictures in sketchnoting is the least important thing, but as a cartoonist, I do quite like it to look nice. So what I'm doing next is I'm thinking, how am I going to create this on the page in a way that will be helpful? And part of that decision-making criteria is how important is the idea. So this is where my ego mustn't run away with me, and I mustn't draw the elephant the size of the page just because I want to draw an elephant. So I resist that, and I think about the metaphor that I'm trying to talk about. So for example, we were talking here about rapid reading, which is an important part of photo reading. And in a way I do that with my sketchnoting as well. What I'll do is, if I've got information that I really want to get down, I will, if it's text information, if it's words, if it's ideas, I will write those down quite quickly. And then if I need to come back to it, to draw some embellishment, to make it look prettier, I can do that when perhaps the speaker is talking about a story, or they're talking about something that I don't need to get down every detail of. And in that moment, then I can slow down, I can draw some prettiness, and really for me, I'm very comfortable listening whilst I'm drawing. In terms of how people have asked me about how I know how to fit it onto the page, to be honest, a lot of that is down to intuition, a lot of that is down to trust. Sometimes you'll end up with a gap on a page, and if I have a gap on a page, then I can either bring in a new idea that perhaps I didn't think was going to make it to the main page, or maybe that's a time for something like the little plaster image, where I might think, actually there's a nice little reminder. Maybe it's something around, it's easier to help people if, some sort of idea, and then I've got that image already in my mind, so I can extract it, pull it down. So it's really about the 80-20 rule. It's you cover 80% of the page, you trust, essentially, you trust, you're always listening, keeping all those senses, and somehow, most of the time, it works out. So that is it.
And I would really like to know, how did you get started with this? Was it just you woke up one day and thought, this is what I'm going to do? How did it start for you, particularly with doing it in the context where you're now working with businesses, you're working with organisations, you're working with trainers and coaches to go in and get to know what they're doing? How did that idea come about?
Well, I've always taken visual notes. I've always doodled through meetings for years and years and years. Very good practice for drawing, by the way. And for me, obviously pictures just capture ideas much more quickly, and you do not have to be a good drawer. That's the thing to tell everyone. It isn't about doing a good drawing, it's about capturing a very simple idea. Obviously these are works of art, as you can see. Just about tell that that's an elephant, and that does its job. And in terms of moving into it and making it my business, actually a friend of mine gave me the Sketchnote Handbook by Mike Road, which is a fantastic book, really accessible, written as a Sketchnote book itself. It's fantastic. And he gave me the book and said, I know your work, I know what you're doing, and I know all the skills that you have in terms of facilitation and disseminating information. I have a background as a marketeer and a copywriter, and so I'm able to bring all those skills into this one miraculous practice, which I love. And I had some personal encouragement where he said, just go out and do this, and now I am.
And when you think about what you're doing, because I saw the notes that you've done for us over the, well, this will be 3 days now of the photo reading weekend, you've captured a huge amount of information, and you're a participant and delegate on the course. So how do you get that much information in that amount of time while you're actually being a delegate and doing the exercises that I'm setting for you as well?
Mostly I think it's about all the things I've said in terms about being in state of listening, and to be honest, there are little break times where I'm there scurrying and filling things in. I'll admit, redrawn a couple of pages. Sometimes it doesn't always work out. You've usually got the day. At the very least, you've got the day. Some people work digitally, they work straight on a tablet, and in a way they have more control because they can cut and paste. I like working on paper, I like the tactile, I'm quite a feeling kinesthetic person as well, so I enjoy that. So occasionally I'll change things around, but really it's about practice, of course. It's about practice and trust and applying those fundamentals. And
do any of you guys have any questions for Caroline about anything she said, how you can use what she's sharing to help you with your photo reading, your mind mapping? Any questions?
Yeah, can I get all your notes at the end of the...
Yes.
I'll see about that.
Ask Marilyn.
Any other questions about the whole process, the creative process, coming up with the images, coming up with the ideas?
I've got a question. It's not to do with that. It's about, would you think about using this with languages, to learn languages?
Absolutely, for anything. I think this and mind mapping, they work really well. It's just about summarising. So you can. I did a piece for someone else where they had told a massive long story, and the story was about procrastination and motivation, and the kind of punchline was, if your kids were in a burning building, would you be motivated to get them out? Of course, the answer being yes. I just had to draw a small image of someone running towards a fire, and that whole story and all of the resonance and everything that it meant and all that it made people feel was immediately re-accessed through that one tiny picture. So the answer is yes, because you can capture it in a small image, and I can't stress enough that it's not about the drawing. It's a stick figure does just as much sort of memory reactivation as something prettier. So yes, I think it works for anything, and you don't have to do it for the whole thing either. You can just do it for little bits and start building up, just seeing that it works and feeling that it works, and then doing it more and more. You don't have to worry about it fitting into the page. That's just because I do it professionally, but for yourself, just use it and experiment with it. It opens up a whole new world.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd like to ask in what ways it could be used to aid memory for education and learning.
Definitely, absolutely. I think people, more and more we're recognising the power of using visual imagery with working with children. Of course, children is so much more open to it. It's very natural for them. I don't know about you, but certainly at school I was discouraged from doodling, and it's crazy because it's such an accessible way for people to take in information. And I think with the visual world that we live in, we know that there's you can increase your retention rates by massive percentages once you're taking in information with both visual and words. It doesn't have to be just visual, the words as well. The combination is extremely powerful. I think it's something that schools are starting to get very interested in now.
Okay. And hopefully universities.
And universities, yes.
And I have a little request for you actually. Could you, just in, some little symbols and characters, it may be just 5, do us a very quick sketch note of step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 and step 5 from photo reading. Just so it'll be a lovely refresher for the group, because everybody hasn't been on Facebook to see the pictures. So if you could just do your representation and summarise step 1 to step 5, that would be absolutely awesome.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I know I should have told you I was going to ask you to do that, shouldn't I?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Of course. So we've got step 1, and step 1 is all about preparing. And for me, that is about getting into state, as you can see. For me, I imagine this tangerine as a dotted line, because just for me, energy, I imagine as a dotted energy. So for me, we start with prepare. Then step 2, we have preview. And preview is really just about taking a first feel and look. It's introducing ourselves to the book. So as soon as I say the word introduce, I'm imagining this book sort of saying hello. So that's what reminds me that we're essentially previewing, we're introducing ourselves to the book, and in reality that means that we're looking at the cover, we're looking at the back, we're looking at the contents, we're looking at the index. Step 3 is the photo reading itself. So again, I'm always going to put the words because our brain, I think, is relaxed. It understands, it's used to seeing words, but then by giving a picture as well, we just embed that information. Once we're photo reading the book, there are a number of things to remember. We're always, at all points, thinking about our purpose. So for me, because purpose is something that runs through, not very neatly done, but I might put that there. So at all points, we're trying to work out what it is that we want to get from this book. When we're reading, what we're doing is we're turning the pages in a very rhythmic, steady way, and we have a chant to go along to help keep our conscious mind out of the process. And with our peripheral vision open and our awareness at the back and top of our head here, we're making sure that we can see at all times the 4 corners of the page, but whilst we're looking with a soft focus view through the centre. Once we've done that, we move to step 4. And at step 4, we are post-viewing. In theory, it's a similar state to the preview, but having already met our book, we've become friends. And what we're doing this time is we're going back into looking through, scanning the outside of the book, the inside, the contents, and flicking through, looking for any trigger words that might jump out from the page, like so. This time, what's different, obviously, is that we've had all these processes leading up, so we have a much greater relationship. And then finally, before we get to finally, we have this wonderful state of incubation, which we like to see with a lovely bed. We get to sleep, which we've all decided is one of the most fabulous benefits of photo reading. It's encouraging this brilliant state of sleep, or at least a rest, a step away from the book, step away from the information, letting it percolate, letting the information come to us in a very natural way. And then we move to step 5, which is activate, which is where everything comes to life and that information just jumps out of the book for us. And there are a number of brilliant ways that we can do that. We can go zigzag down the page, we can swirl around the page. This has actually become my favourite. I'm somebody who would normally had to have read a book from start to finish, but just a couple of days with Marilyn's magic, and I'm completely liberated from that. Absolutely liberated from that, and I can now dip, which is something I haven't been able to do for my many years. So at this stage we're activating, and at this point we're really making sure that we capture the important information, those golden nuggets that are going to give us the answers to the questions that we've been asking for this book on our mind map. And we might have some colour there. Ta-da!
Wow!
And that is the 5 steps.
That deserves a massive round of applause. And Caroline, can you please tell us where people can find out more? So your website address, if you want to give an email, if you want to give a telephone number, please tell people where they can find you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Well, my name is Caroline Chapple. My surname is a bit weird spelling, so I'll spell it as Chapple. And my website address is chapelcartoons.co.uk, and my email address is carolinechapple@aol.com, and my number is 07813 943 787, and you can find examples of my sketchnoting and my cartoons as well on my chapelcartoons.co.uk website. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Oh, Caroline, that was absolutely awesome. Thank you so much. That was incredible. Magical, magical.